Hey, what's going on? It's your boy Jerry Washington here at General Fitness Company. Now, I've been training for about 20 years, and I have to say that the question that most people ask me is, what is the quickest and easiest way to get stronger? Well, I have to say, the easiest way to do that is come train with me here at General Fitness Company, and I guarantee you will get stronger a lot faster. But if you don't have access to me, or you don't have the ability to get here to General Fitness Company, well, I have 5 tips for you today that can help you get stronger faster. And these are tips that you might not hear your typical personal trainer or your fitness professional talk about, so listen closely. Tip number 1, strengthen your core. Now you might be saying to yourself, I do a lot of crunches and I do a lot of sit-ups. What else do I need to do to strengthen my core? Well, let me tell you this, your core is not just your abdominals. In fact, it's your hip flexors, it's your abs, it's your chest, it's your upper back and your lower back. Essentially, it's your torso. It's important to strengthen your torso because it's what connects your whole body together. Your hip flexors connect your legs to your body, your shoulders connect your arms to your body, and your chest connects your head and neck to your body. Now, when you strengthen that, you obviously will have a stronger core, and that will make you have better awareness of your body, it'll help you move better through the world, and it'll help you give you a little bit better balance, not to mention that it'll help you breathe better. All these things will help you prevent injuries, and that's ultimately what we all want in our lives, be injury-free, right? So one exercise that you can do is a back extension. The reason why I recommend doing a back extension for your core is because, obviously you already know about a crunch, you already know about a sit-up, but most people spend about 8 hours a day in a seated position. When you're in a seated position, especially if you're working, you're gonna have a slightly forward tilt. And because you have that forward tilt, you're gonna have what's called forward flexion on your lower spine. So the opposite, or the antidote to that, is a back extension. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna lay on your stomach, you have your feet together, you're gonna have your feet on the floor as you raise your chest off the ground. That's gonna help you strengthen your back, and it's gonna help you counterbalance that 8 hours a day that you're spending in a seated position. Now, as I said, strengthening your core can also help you with your breathing. And I also said that most people do spend about 8 hours of their day in a seated position. So that being said, you're gonna have a little bit of compression in your diaphragm when that happens. When you have that compression, that's going to unfortunately make you either breathe from your chest or your belly, or in certain cases, if you're strong, you breathe from both. That's ultimately what we all want. We want to be able to breathe from our chest as well as our belly. But if you're in one of those cases where you're breathing from either your chest or your belly, we have an exercise or have something that can help you strengthen your awareness in your belly, or strengthen your awareness in your breath. And that's our second rule number 2, have awareness, or create awareness in your breath. So if you are a belly breather, what you want to do is you want to put either a foam roller or a ball underneath your belly, and that's going to help you breathe through your chest. So what you're essentially trying to do here is you're trying to eliminate that process. Eliminate where you're normally breathing, limit that, and so that you can create awareness where you're not breathing. So the opposite applies for your chest breathers. If you're only breathing in your chest, you want to put a foam roller or a ball underneath your chest. You're going to lay on your stomach, and you're going to try to execute on your breaths. A little more awareness of how you're breathing. It's going to help you breathe stronger. It's going to help your core become a little bit stronger, and of course, it's going to help you with your balance. Just a quick tip, a tip on top of a tip. You don't just breathe with your diaphragm. You actually breathe with your whole body. If you take a deep breath, you can see it's not just your torso that moves. Your shoulders move. You have to kind of get some balance with your feet and your legs, and that's what we want to talk about in this next tip. Strengthen your feet. So yes, as I just said, your balance is in your breath, but it's also in your feet. We want to have stronger feet because obviously your feet are what help you move through the world. If you have good ankle flexion, if you have good ankle extension, if you have good balance if you have good strength in your feet, you'll obviously have better balance, and you'll be able to move better throughout the world. So one exercise that I have my clients execute is a calf raise. And a calf raise is really good because obviously it's good for your balance, but it also helps with your ankle flexion, which is very important. A lot of people walk flat-footed. A lot of people kind of walk and they use mostly their knees or their hips, and they don't use a lot of their ankles. So one exercise I have my clients do is a calf raise, and it's very simple. You just stand on the ground with your shoes on or off, it's your choice, and you just literally reach your heels up off the ground. You want to do this by putting all five toes on the ground. You want to have all 5 toes pushed into the floor, because we want to make sure that you're practicing putting all the pressure on all 5 toes. Here, the 4th tip we're going to want to get into, as I said, balance and breathing is important. But what's also important is moving through the world. As we alluded to that when we were talking about the calf raises. But moving through the world is not just forward and back. It's also side to side. It's squatting. It's extending your spine, as we talked about earlier. It's forward flexion, and all those movements are controlled by your hips. So a lot of people think that it's important to strengthen your hips because it's good for your knees, but it's not just for your knees. Again, it's good for your squats. It's good for your for pretty much everything that you need to do that involves you moving from one place to another. So if you want to have stronger knees, if you want to have stronger ankles, if you want to have a stronger back, you're going to execute on some hip presses. As I said before, when you're at the office, you spend about 8 hours a day in a seated position. In a seated position, you essentially eliminate your hamstrings altogether. You're not using your hamstrings at all, and because you're not using your hamstrings, whatever you don't use, you lose. So you're going to have atrophy in your hamstrings as well as in your glutes. So a hip press is executed by laying on your back with your feet flat on the floor and your knees bent. What you're going to do is you're going to lift your hips up off the ground, and that's going to help you activate your hamstrings as well as your glutes. Cause for most injuries that most people do not have strong hips, is that they use mostly their knees and their ankles and their lower back to execute most movements. So that actually, we're going to go into our last tip here, the 5th tip, and that is a weak muscle, or excuse me, a tight muscle is normally a weak muscle. So a lot of people think about this. They say, when you have a tight muscle or something like that, you say, oh, I need to stretch my hamstring. If you have a tight hamstring, I need to stretch my hamstring. Or you have a tight shoulder, you think I need to stretch my shoulder. But that's not necessarily the case. See, there's a thing called an associative process, the principle of association, excuse me. So what that essentially means is that whatever is tight is not necessarily the thing that is going to be the mover, right? So if you have a tight hamstring, what's going to happen is that it's not necessarily the hamstring that's the issue. It could be your calf muscle, or it could be your glute or your lower back. All these things are connected to the hamstring, and because and you'll notice that the hamstring is tight, or you'll notice that there's a weakness there because of that tightness, and that tightness is caused by the pulling of the other muscles that are stronger than that hamstring. So again, if that principle or the example here is the hamstring, your glute and your calf might be stronger than your hamstring. So therefore, they're pulling on that weak muscle. So because that weak muscle doesn't have the ability to pull back, it's going to feel tight. So what you want to do is you want to strengthen your muscles. You don't want to spend all your time stretching. Obviously, stretching is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Yoga's been around for thousands of years, so it obviously has its validity. But that's not the only thing you want to do. You want to strengthen your muscles so that you can have that contrasting force. You want to be able to pull. You want your hamstrings to pull back on your glutes and on your calf muscles. You don't want them to be acted upon. You also want them to act. All right, so that pretty much does it for these 5 tips. These are tips that you won't hear most fitness professionals talk about. Most people talk about specific exercises, or they talk about your diet, but they don't talk about these hidden secrets that most people, just aren't really aware of, because that's not really what they focus on. We all want to look good on video, and we all want to have strong biceps and a 6-pack abs, but if your back is not functioning well, or if your hamstrings aren't doing what they're supposed to do, well, then eventually you're going to be susceptible to injury, and you're not going to be a happy person. So, anyways, I do appreciate you watching this. I hope this brought you a lot of value. If you did enjoy it, feel free to share it with someone else. Until next time, this is your boy Jerry Washington, and as always, keep good company.